Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Pranzata podcast. This is your host, Andrea Pranzatelli. This is episode number 72 on my podcast series on YouTube. I have a woman here today. This is a rare occasion. I've been begging women on Instagram, like, please come to the podcast. It's a sausage fest over here. So we finally got a woman here. Her name is Kristin Marie. She is a stand-up comedian she does comedy in Philadelphia, but also Pennsylvania, Bethlehem area as well. She's also a nurse and a mother, and I have some questions prepared for her today. Before we get into it, if you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel this year, so it would mean a lot to me if you could support that. And also, please, I want to open up a conversation in the comments section. So if anything piques your interest as we go along with the conversation, I would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so question number one. I put some questions on Instagram for you. I was like, there's a woman coming, ask her a question. I'm really excited. And I got 2 questions for you because this was very last minute. Ooh. The first question is from Big Time Mash, and he wants to know, why do you think good girls like bad guys? So is that true for you? Do you like bad guys? And if you do or used to, why do you think so?
I definitely think that's true. I think that it's boring. We're like looking for like, I don't know. And if they're like nice, then we like kind of are like, oh, I'm gonna ruin you. I don't know. I think that's.
Do you have a history of dating bad guys or bad boys?
I do. Yeah.
Like your whole life? Like you've always dated bad boys?
Pretty much.
Wow.
Like I don't know if there's been one nice guy that's made it. Like.
I think, you know what I think that is? I think it's genetic. I think that's passed on from like DNA. I think women are very, back into the hunter-gatherer eras, probably we needed strong men in order to protect the tribe type of thing. So my theory about that is it's probably just very deeply ingrained in our DNA that we want like a big, strong man to protect the tribe type of thing. So I would imagine like even in the modern day, women probably are attracted to the bad boy because of the I don't know, like the manliness that it comes across, like the dominance that comes across in the attitude, I don't know if you agree with that.
No,
at all.
I could totally agree with that. Yeah.
So you've never tried a nice guy?
No. I'd like to see one that would maybe.
Interesting. Yeah, no. There's this one comedian, and I feel bad that I don't remember his name, but he has a great joke, because I would shout him out so he can get followers, but I don't remember his name. But he has a great joke, and this like I was dying laughing from this. He was like, a lot of women say that there's no nice guys out there. Like a lot of single women say they can't find a guy. He's like, that's not true. There are nice guys out there. They're just ugly. And like,
that's the thing. That's one thing. We were just talking about the one day how we're like, if you have to be nice, there's something going on. Like either you have like, sorry guys, but if you have like, maybe there's issues or like something's not like they have to be friendly because so there's got to be like something somewhere that it's the same thing with height.
Yeah.
Like guys will always like to say they're like, I'm 6 foot or I'm like 6'5" or whatever. And like, this is it. But like, you have to follow up with a little more than that. And
you were telling me, I actually have a question about this, and we're going to get to it later. You were telling me when I asked you to do a little write-up like about your background info, you were saying you've been single for 6 years now. You've been on the market for 6 years. So
6 years.
Stay tuned for this conversation later. I'm going to ask her questions about what her life has been like dating, because 6 years single, I would imagine you've been through the thick of it.
It's like war. It's a battle zone out here.
Before we get there, I do have one more question from a listener. His name is Adrian Morales. He's a longtime listener and friend of mine. He wants to know, what is the worst joke you've ever told on stage as far as pushing the envelope? So I think what he's trying to say is like, what's the most offensive joke you've said that like you got a reaction from the audience that wasn't like you could have pushed it a little too far?
Oh man, a lot of the stuff. So when I first started, I always was like, am I allowed to say whatever I want? Like I can say whatever I want and it's cool. And everyone had like convinced me that it was okay. Mm-hmm. And then eventually when I started to like say stuff, it was like, I went like all the way to the end. Like I was like, I'm gonna push this as far as I can go. And there's been shows where like I was actually not allowed to come back to.
Really?
Like locations that were like, they were like, yeah. And recently a whole bunch of people, that's happened to them where they've actually like canceled shows because of like some of this stuff. People are coming to a comedy show, but they like don't realize they're coming to a comedy show, so they get offended at the stuff that we're saying when like that's the point that you're there for.
Wait, you specifically have been canceled at multiple shows, or you're saying in general?
Just in general, a lot of the people there was one place in particular that and like back home that they were like, you have to like you can't come back up here. And I was like, okay, like, and I think a lot of it, my mom came to a show for the first time after like a year of me doing it. She finally showed up to one, and I wanted to like really, so I talked about a lot of stuff that probably she was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this.
Do you care to discuss, you don't have to literally give the joke away, but do you care to discuss like at least what was the subject of the joke that was so touchy for people?
I mean, I think at this point, a lot of, like, I've heard a lot of guy comedians talk about, like, jokes about, like, eating ass and, like, how that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
I don't think that's actually that offensive.
It's not offensive to talk about it, but I think that, like, people just didn't know how to, like, really
react to it. I think that, like, eating ass, like, I think that's just like so silly, like, you know what I mean? It's like a
preference thing, right? But like I just go after it because I'm like, well, if you guys are gonna talk such a big game about this, then like you should probably be able to follow through with like some other stuff too. Like I just think the general basic things, like that's where I go from. Like I'm just my perspective of it. But yeah, I've heard people make some jokes like and just been like, nope, you cannot come back here.
That's crazy. I've never personally experienced that myself yet. I guess if I can answer his question as well, because I also do stand up.
Yeah.
I've never been in a situation where I've gotten kicked out. That's never, or like told I can't come back. That's never happened. But I've been in situations where I just like made the room kind of uncomfortable. You could tell that they were like I got, rather than getting laughter, I got like, ooh, like I got that reaction.
Yes.
And a lot of it is if I talked about, like, just to be blunt, you know, with all the listeners, if I've ever talked about sexual abuse, because like that's something that I've experienced in my past. Mm-hmm. And when I've talked about it on stage, it's been very hit or miss. Some stages, like the way I phrased it, they thought it was hilarious, and then other stages just like didn't get it and they felt bad for me. Like they didn't like take the joke, like they kind of just felt bad for me, and it was just really awkward. So yeah, I guess for me that would be it. But that's crazy. I've never actually gotten kicked out. That's impressive that you got kicked out of somewhere. I'm like
small town.
All right, so those are the listeners' questions. I literally put them up like an hour before you came here, so we only got two. But now I have my questions for you. So I want to know a little bit about your background of why you started doing stand-up, because you kind of already shared that a little bit with me, that it was kind of a de-stressing thing for you. Mm-hmm. So do you care to share, you know, with the listeners what, you know, I think it's interesting to hear how or why this became an outlet for you, you know?
Yeah, I definitely, I went through a bad divorce, and I felt like it was a way for me to like de-stress about things that were going on in that situation without like ever having to give a name or like ownership to like a thing. And it just made me feel better. Like a lot of the people that you'll hear, they're like, oh, therapy and like this and that. And like, I'm like, I can't afford therapy. So you guys have to listen to me. So I kind of started using it. That was like my whole thing. So
that should be a joke in itself. Just be like, I can't afford therapy. like just tell that to your audience. Like, so I'm just going to bitch to you guys. That would actually be great.
Yeah.
Okay. So you went through a rough divorce. Mm-hmm. What is that like? Like, cause like how, you know, I don't want to scare anybody who's married and like doesn't want to go through a divorce, but do you have any advice for people who are going through a divorce or who are in a rough situation where they think it's headed that way? Do you have any like tips for how to cope with that or anything like that?
I definitely think that like a lot of people stay out of guilt, and that's like where I was at. But I think that you can like figure out a lot more about yourself, and like you can do way better if you like are in a healthy situation that like you're not dealing with that kind of stuff. I gave myself a lot of like grief for like not just like getting out of there sooner.
Gotcha.
But I think that people pressure themselves into getting married,
Gotcha.
like early.
Gotcha.
And then not knowing all the stuff that goes into it later.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 27.
Okay. All right. I guess that's not ridiculously young, but then again, at the same time, it's probably not even a matter of your actual physical age. It's a matter of like your life experience and how well you know the person. Did you feel like a society pressure, like all your friends were getting married, so you just kind of wanted to tie the knot sort of thing?
Yeah. It definitely comes up. And like at the time, I didn't think of it that way. But then I was like, oh, yeah, it was quick. And like it just kind of happened. I was like, oh, you want to marry me? Like no one else does. Like, we'll try this out.
I've noticed this, like, because I've been to so many weddings this year to the point where I was like, if anybody else invites me to a fucking wedding, like, you better start paying me like, instead of me paying you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I went to so many weddings and I started to notice a trend like that when a lot of your friends, and they weren't even my friends, they were my boyfriend's friends, but I noticed all my boyfriend's friends were getting married at the same time. And I'm like, there's kind of a weird trend where when one gets married, it's almost like the human nature must be competitive or something, because it's like, oh, then that one decided to do it and that one decided to do it. And then I guess that's a good point, is that I'm sure there's plenty of loving relationships like between these people who got married, but I'm sure there's got to be at least one or two cases that kind of like did it just because their friends were doing it and didn't think about it.
Yeah, no.
Were you, on your actual wedding day, were you big like Bridezilla, like really big into the show of it, or not so much your thing?
No, I actually, it's funny, I got married out of state and it was a small wedding. Yeah. And I actually like hid for like an hour before everything started. Like that actually happened, where I felt like all of this stuff was happening that like kind of was leading up to the fact that I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. But then I'm like, the guilt of like everyone traveling to get there. Yeah. I kind of was like, I guess we should. Like, I don't know. Like, it was just like, it was like the wrong circumstances, I feel like, to start. But
yeah, I think if I get married, I feel like I would be a shit show on my wedding day. Like, because not even necessarily like I said, the Bridezilla type that's like, I need the flowers to all match the, you know, that type of thing. But I think I'm a very anxious person, and I don't think I'd be able to sleep the night before, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm supposed to look my hottest I've ever looked today, and like I can't sleep, and I'm, you know, not eating. I think I'd be super stressed out at a wedding.
It's definitely how I felt. That was definitely all of those things.
Okay, so that's interesting. So for you, comedy was an outlet for your the stresses you're going through divorce. And how long have you been doing comedy?
It's almost 2 years now that I've been like doing stuff. So it's like early on. A lot of my friends are like 12 years in, and this is like what they do. Okay. I do it as like, extra, I guess, is like my little thing, but like been trying to make it my
main thing.
Yeah.
And you're also a nurse as well.
Yes.
How do you, because you're also a mom, how do you find the time to even write jokes? And like, do you have a babysitter? How does this work, you know?
She's with her dad half the time. And then the other part, like I think of things, it's weird, 2 places, mostly in the shower or when I'm driving. Okay. So I have to like talk them into my phone if I'm driving. Yep. And like, I'll just think of like all this random stuff. I always joke around. It's like the funny things like bubble into my brain, like while I'm doing mindless, like travel or whatever. And at work, I get like some of the stuff too. Like I'll just think of something and I'm like, I have to write that down.
That makes a lot of sense. Cause I think that's how it works. Anytime I've ever tried to sit down and actually write, sometimes I'll come up with stuff, but I'll have a theme in mind, but the actual punchline will come, like you said, in the shower. It's kind of a strange thing. It's almost like, it almost feels like it's coming from like another source or something. It's a very strange thing, you know? That's funny that you said before that. I was like, how do you even get a babysitter? And you said, well, you know, you're divorced, so your daughter is with her dad half the time. And I just thought, like, maybe that's the ticket for for having a good career and being a parent. Just get a divorce, because then you'll have like 3 or 4 days of the week where you don't have to watch your kid. So anyone listening, if you want to be a mother and a comedian, just get married and get a divorce, and that's how you're gonna make it work. No, or I don't know, or have a partner who like splits the time with you or whatever. But okay, so now we're back to this question about the dating. So after your divorce, you've been single for 6 years. I want to know, is this a personal choice? Like you just don't want to be with anybody, or is it just because you've had a rough time finding somebody you're interested in being with?
I like would date people and like it would never get past like the first part of it. And I think honestly, I was reading an article the one day where it was like people can't pretend like more than 1 to 3 months. So like past that point, they can't pretend like the story that you get in the beginning isn't always like what you get like after that. And then they just can't uphold it anymore. They're like, I just can't.
So you felt like a lot of guys were putting on a show and then after the show was over,
they disappear or whatever. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Do you do the dating apps? Is that how you...
Oh, I tried that. My friends made me a profile for like...
They've made it for you.
They made it for me. It was hilarious. So I was like, I don't really care that much about this, but like they would even like swipe through. And I was like, half the people on there are like people you know. Like I was like, I know you. Like, like I see you sometimes out. Like, why do I have to like talk to you on an app or like whatever? It was just the whole thing is like weird to me. So
you're not like, you would prefer meeting people naturally versus meeting people on
I always
an
say
app.
like organic is like way better.
Yeah.
But like that's how it's says.
No, I agree with that. I was single. I was in a long-term relationship before I was in the relationship I'm in now. And I remember telling that guy, we better get married because I am old school. Like I don't mean like pressuring him to marriage. I was basically saying like, I hope we get married because I'm very old school. And if we don't work out, I'm going to have to go out in the world and use dating apps. And I don't think I'm going to do well with that. And that was 100% the case. Like when we broke up, I tried doing a couple dates on those apps. And I was like, I'm never going to find, like, I was like, this is not for me. Like the app thing is not for me. So for any male listeners, I want you to tell, because I've actually put, during that time that I was using the dating app, I was complaining about it. And I was like basically bitching on my podcast about how horrible of a job like men were doing on their profiles. And I actually got a bunch of men reaching out to me being like, hey, your tips were good. Can you look at my profile and see if there's anything wrong? Oh. So I have another woman here. I want you to tell the male listeners, on these dating apps, what are some of your biggest red flags that men might be doing that they don't realize are turning women off?
Oh God. It was just like the conversation was the same. Like all of them say the same thing. They're like, hey, good morning, beautiful. You know, you'd have like 15 like good morning beautifuls. And like, you're like, I don't want to address, like, it's like work to like have to go through and like decide who you're going to answer. And like, they didn't want to like progress to anything further than that. It was just kind of like a weird conversation. And then you're like, okay, like I'm just not doing this every day. So, and it, yeah.
So like conversationally wise.
Yeah. Like they definitely need to pick up like where they're going faster than like what they're doing. Like it just seemed like it was just like the same stuff for a while. And I only was on for a week and a half and I was like, one guy even had a profile. My friend set me up on two. I think it was like Tinder and Bumble or something. Yeah, two very different things. But like one, it was like the dude had like I'm a family man. I'm like this and that. And then the other like Tinder profile was like just looking to, whatever. So like, and I'm like down to,
Maybe he actually meant it, but maybe he was like, "Hey, if I could get laid on this, that's fine." But I'm in this other one. But he could be full of shit too. He could just be like doing whatever he has to do to get laid.
I was like, he's trying. I guess I can't hate the game on that one. Like he was trying to do like whatever.
You guys can steal my line if you want. But like actually, I don't know if this would work. On my profile, I wrote, when I was single, I wrote, really into Jews. And that's actually, it's true. My boyfriend's half Jewish. And like, I've always been like into like Jewish guys with big noses. I don't know. It's a thing. And I just wrote on my profile, really into Jews. And I got a lot of like interesting questions from that. Like people would be like, are you being funny? Are you serious? Like it kind of like got a lot of attention, I think. And it sparked up a good conversation. So I guess like the male version of that would be to say something like more interesting on your profile.
Like,
hey, you could just put, I'm really into Jews. And then You might get, I don't know how that would work if men wrote it though, like versus women. It might be kind of strange.
It's just, yeah.
What about like, besides the way they communicate, but profile wise, is there any particular photo that you're like, oh my God, if I see the fucking workout photo one more time or the dog photo, like, is there anything that drives you?
Like
fish?
They hold the fish like up to like be like whatever. And like, so we were making jokes about the fact that like, you know, just like holding up random shit to be like,
it's like kind of like yeah.
It's like this is what I do. I mean, some people generally, and I know I have friends that like to fish and like to hunt and do all that stuff, and that's cool. But like when that's like the main thing, like I don't know, it sets a tone.
I know what you mean. It's kind of like when you see someone holding a fish, it's kind of like, it's weird because in real life that would be cool probably. Like if I was dating a guy that was fishing, I'd be like, that's cool. But when you see it like that, it's kind of like, it's like you're like trying to make a sale of yourself. You're like, hey, like I'm a man, like I catch a fish, like, you know.
Especially if it's like a little one. It's just like, I'm really proud of this little fish. Like it's like
if you're but it could go both ways though, because then if they had a big fish, I'd be like, they're fucking bragging like at this point. So that's the thing, like as much as we're making fun of it, I feel like there's really no way to win. Like no matter what you do, you just look ridiculous. Like I'm sure I looked ridiculous on my profile too. Like I'd be curious, actually, men, drop in the comment section. I want to hear it the other way around. What's the weirdest, biggest turnoffs that women put in their profiles? Because I'm sure I did some shit that I'm not seeing, you know? So no.
That's true.
All right, so let me ask you the other questions. Ooh, okay. This question, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I'm wondering, you know, if you experience the same thing. As a female, do you find it difficult to make female friends or keep female friends? I personally think women can be catty. I have a lot more male friends than I do female friends, and I'm wondering if this is normal. Like, how do you feel about that?
No, yeah. This is a huge topic. I'm just like, oh my God, can I jump on this?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I have, like, I grew up with like 5 really good guy friends that like, they were like everything and they taught me everything I know. But now I make jokes too all the time. Like I'm so awkward with girls. And when I do meet a girl that's like cool, like I was like immediately when you had posted about, like, I was like, yes, like I love meeting people that like, I feel like have great vibes. They're like successful. They're doing things. They're like creative. And then like some of the people that like some of the women that I come in contact with, I'm not like, but like they're just not as easy to like open up to you. There's like a lot of things. I've been in like weird fights at bars where like not myself like fighting with them, but like somebody will come up to me and like it's just very like aggressive about the intentions. If I like have a guy friend that's like a comedian and like I want to like I'll buy him a drink or something and like it becomes this thing. Like I'm like I just like want to have friends like I did when I was in high school. Like guy friends that are like cool, but like now that we're older, it's like not acceptable as much obviously to like have like friendships like that because everybody looks at it differently. But like I still feel like way more comfortable like just with, you know, a bunch of like, and that's not true for everyone. I shouldn't say that. Not all women are that way. Yeah. But I definitely feel that like strongly.
I've noticed with my female friendships in my life, and I'm kind of starting from scratch here because I just moved to this area. So I had some female friends in North Jersey and like they're all gone, like not gone, but just like we can't really see each other because we live far away now. I find that my history of my friendships with women, I would get these like very close girlfriends. Like I wouldn't have like, I never was that bitch with like 10 girl, like, you know what I mean? Like that girl, like, you know the type of woman I'm talking. Yeah, the mean girls. I've never been that bitch with like 10 girls at a time. I went to a birthday party of one of those ones, but I'll get to that later because that was a funny story. But I've always been like one to have 1 or 2 really close girlfriends that, you know, we just got along really well. And then I would find at some point in the friendship, whether it be within a year or within 10 years, some huge fight would happen. And the friendship would break up. And it was like, it's just amazing to me. I was talking about this with one of my guy friends men are so casually competitive with each other, like, and they just get it out there.
Yeah.
They'll just be like, yo, dude, that shirt's fucking ugly, and like they just like say shit to each other, like very
like
bluntly.
we're gonna just like hit each other and get it over with.
Yeah, like my one of my exes told me, he's like, men, like if I ever complained about a female situation, like with one of my friends, he'd be like, men just tell shit to each other to their face and get it out, like, and I feel like that's one of the issues of why female friendships don't work, because we're not very assertive with each other. Like if I went to you and I was like, yo, bitch, your outfit's ugly, which by the way, it's beautiful. Like, so I'm afraid to even joke about it. It's a gorgeous outfit, but I feel like you'd, if we were actually like really good friends and I said that, you would be like, bitch, like, or maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, I would appreciate the honesty, but like, but that's like I'm maybe like a little different than some people, but I do know I've had friends that like that kind of stuff. Like you almost have to like be like very like nice to some of them, like to the point where you feel like I'm not being honest anymore. Yeah. Like it's like a weird thing where like they just want you to be surface, like, and that's it.
Any competition? Like, did you ever find that females were very catty or competitive with you?
I have had that. And like, sometimes I don't even really realize that that's what's happening. I think that like, I guess I don't see myself as like a threat to people. I don't at all. And like, I'll have like things come up and I'm like, why don't they like me? And it's like this, it's like because of this stuff, and it'll come up later. Somebody will either tell me or like, and I think that people's insecurities come out, like, and that's fair, but then they should probably address it that way. And
I think if women were more comfortable, like just being like, hey, you hurt my feelings this, or hey, I kind of got jealous. Like if they were just, if they were just like open with each, because it's funny. I feel like jealousy is such a shame. Like people have so much shame about jealousy, and I used to have like a lot of shame about it myself. But as I got older, I realized that if you just, it's not really the jealousy that's a problem. It's more what you do with the jealousy. Like if I see like, okay, for example, if I look at your page and I see you're thriving, you had a great comedy show, and I feel like a little twinge of like, ooh, like there's something in my gut that felt something. That's information basically telling me like, I want to get a comedy show. So there's two things I could do with that. I could either be inspired and work harder so I get the comedy show, or I could take it out on you and try to put you down because I don't feel like putting in the work. And I feel like if women were just more honest about their jealousy and like analyzed it a little more, there would probably be less fighting and competition amongst women, It's
true.
So,
and it has been, I mean, in the comedy situation, I have noticed like, I definitely feel like I've gotten a lot more feedback and like positive things from the guys. And then like the girls are kind of just like, we're going to stay over here. But like, it's slowly getting better. There's some people that I've met that I'm like, okay, cool. Like the support is like, I think what's helpful in this, like being able to say like, hey, I bombed tonight. Like I did real bad. And like having that, like, well, we can talk about like what's going to be better. I've had some of my guy friends like talk to me about stuff like, you could do this better, or you could like, you know, and like the positivity in that, like, it's way more. But yeah, females, you wouldn't necessarily
get that.
Maybe you would not know.
In your experience, have you been one of the only females at your shows, or do you see more females going out these days?
There's been a few. I wouldn't say it's a lot. It's definitely more guys. But like, I mean, I'm happy when anyone comes out. Like we just had someone come out that started like a few months ago, and she's been always wanting to do this. So she's like, just starting it and like getting into things, and super proud of her, like all of like the things that she's doing. And I just feel like it's, if you think about like going into something like this, like I wanted to do it for like 4 years before I finally like, I was like, I'm going to do this. And and everyone was like, oh, you're going to look dumb. And I was like, that's kind of the point. Like it's, maybe there's a part of you that like needs that, like whatever it is that you are like thinking about, like wanting to do, like you shouldn't, sitting back, and if I sat back and watched myself and not actually got up, I wouldn't know half of the things that like, I just feel like it was a huge like process for me to like finally do it and like be like, okay, I embarrassed myself. Like but I'm getting out like things, and people are laughing, like, and it's like, so it's a win-win all the way around. I don't know.
What are some of the more recent things you've learned about stand up, like within your own stand up, like, oh, I just kind of unlocked this thing that I realize is going to make my comedy better. Like, oh, I'm not interacting with the guests enough. I'm not giving eye contact, or like whatever, like, or about your joke writing. Is there anything you've learned recently?
I was like having trouble with the crowd work thing, and like also punchlines like were like I had them in my brain. Like I was like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do. But then when I get up there, I got so nervous that I'd be like, and it like almost would freeze me to the point where I was like, I can't even remember my joke. Like I was like, oh, this is, but it like with the crowd work and stuff, I just feel like I'll like just pick someone. And I'm like, ooh. And then like, I just know, and I feel bad for them sometimes because it's been hilarious. Like some people are just like, no, like don't. But I think that has been a big thing that definitely like getting to be able to talk to people and like kind of interact with them makes for a better like situation. Sometimes it's been like better than I imagined just out of the fact that I like brought somebody else in that was a stranger. So
yeah, I think people want to, I mean, granted, you don't want people heckling you or interrupting the show, but I think at the end of the day, people want to feel like they're part of the experience. So whether you're interacting with them in that kind of way where you're doing crowd work or you're bringing up topics that's relatable to the audience. I think that's the big thing too, is like if you can't speak with them directly face to face, you can at least bring up topics that are going to make people go like, I know what she's talking about. And that's what makes people laugh. Like if other people are like, oh yeah, I've had that ridiculous experience, you know?
The bonding in the crowd. Yeah. I had that a few times. It's like these girls are like, yeah, tell me more. And I'm like, oh.
I wrote a suicide joke once, like, so going back to like pushing the line. I tried it like 2 or 3 times and like I was ready to give it up. I'm like, all right, I just don't think this joke will ever work because it's a little too dark. And one person in the audience, they like started cracking up. Like it was one of the loudest laughs I ever got. It wasn't the whole crowd. It was just this one man.
And then you were like, do you want the number for the suicide hotline? Like that's when you have to, I'm like, I would be concerned then.
And then, like after the show, he came up to me. He's like, that thought you said, I've had that exact same thought. And like, I'll actually just tell it to everybody because I don't think it'll ever actually work as a joke. I think I said like, because I've had a history of like mental illness and depression, stuff like that. And the joke was, and you're probably not going to laugh and neither is anybody because nobody laughs at it. But the joke was like, it was something like, I knew I was in a dark place when the way I talked myself out of killing myself was realizing that if reincarnation was true, if I killed myself, I just have to come back again. Like so like the quickest way, like if reincarnation is real, the quickest way to just disappear is to live this life, so I don't have to reincarnate. Because like whatever, it was like this kind of dark thought, and no one ever liked it. And this one guy just like laughed his ass off, and then after the show he was like, I've had that same exact thought. So like there was just a niche audience for that thought. But the point I'm getting at here is like that's the goal of comedy, is to connect with the audience. And obviously that thought didn't connect with a wide audience.
It's too bad we can't take like a survey beforehand and like, like so what are you guys into? Like usually I like to go up and like kind of try to see like how like I feel it out, and like sometimes I'm like, oh god, this is gonna be bad. Like it's just like it's gonna be like I'm gonna have to work really hard. When the first show I ever did, when I got up, I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like I'm up here and you're like, make me laugh. And like, that's how I felt. And I said it out loud. Like I was just like, and all the people were like, you know what? No, like that's just keep going with it. And like, but eventually that thought like kind of dissipates after a while. But it was like very daunting to have everybody just staring at you. Like your job here is to make me laugh. Like, but I don't know. It's
no, that's actually a good point what you made, because I've heard a lot of pro comedians say that they're like, if you have any weird thoughts that are like making you nervous, like a pro tip is just say them out loud. Yeah. Because it makes you very like authentic and vulnerable. So rather than just being like, I'm nervous, like in your own head, like rather in your head being like, I'm nervous there. Like if you just say, I have to make you guys laugh, like just admitting those weird thoughts. I've heard pros talk about that, like saying like, yeah, I eventually figured out just to say my honest thoughts on stage all the time. And it ends up like being funnier than you think, you know? So, yeah. But yeah, that's a good point. Like I was talking about that too with music, because I'm a musician, and people ask me like, do I get nervous on stage? When I'm in a band, not at all, because like it's a band. Like there's like if you were up with like 5 comedians at the same time, it would be a lot more comforting. But when I've done solo shows, like just solo piano shows, it's the same feeling. It's like literally everybody in the room is like, okay, I'm staring right at you. And it's a very, like you said, a very daunting feeling. It just kind of like shakes you up, you know? It's like crazy that we would even want to do that. All right. So like moving on. Okay. Assertiveness. This is like a really random question, but I like sometimes I just like I use this as therapy. Like you're saying, you use comedy as therapy. I use my podcast as therapy. Something I've been working on lately, and I'm curious to know how you are with this or if you have a similar experience. I feel like growing up, I was always a people pleaser. And now I'm trying to find a healthy balance of assertiveness. And I can't like figure out the balance. Like I'll just hold my feelings inside. And then finally when they come out, it's a little more angry than assertive. How are you with assertiveness? Are you good at it? Or is this something you suck at? Like what's your thing?
I'm like thinking of like, so yeah, I feel like I'm the same. Like I grew up the same way. But I do like, it kind of is like 0 to 60 on that, like depending on the situation. Like if I know that you know better and like you do something that like, whatever, I can't even think, like at work or something happens and somebody like, you're educated on your decisions, you know what you did was wrong, and I feel strongly about it, I can be like pretty, like I'm like, okay, whatever, like you know, you shouldn't have done that. But there's like when it comes to like having to like bring up things to people, like, and how good I am with like conversations and like relationships. Like if somebody does something and you're like, hey, that like offended me or like made me upset, like in some kind of way, I'm not great at like saying how I feel, but I've been trying. That's something I would work on. So I've been like trying to get it out there, because the first thing we want to do is hold it in, because we don't want to like make other people feel like they did something like to whatever, but it is other people doing the thing. Like they're the, like, I'm like, I'm not in this situation right now because I feel like I did something wrong. I feel like the people around you need to kind of know and need to be called out on that sometimes. Yeah. And we are not good at that, but yes. Yeah.
That's funny. You're such a soft speaker, but for a moment you got loud. I'm like, I must have got into like, so
it was a spot.
I must have got into a question that really like touched a nerve, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, got you passionate there. No, that's something like I'm in therapy, and it's something like my therapist and I have been talking about. For some reason, I go through the same thing where when somebody's doing something that I feel like is not right, I actually feel guilty about upsetting them by telling them, which is like so ass backwards. So it's like, it's always been such a tough balance for me, because I'm like, I can't just let people walk over me. You know what I mean? Like I have to, like, it's always been difficult for me. And not only that, but I often doubt myself. Like when I start having feelings of frustration and that type of thing, I'll start to doubt myself and be like, is it just me? Am I difficult? Like I'll start to like think I'm going crazy. Like to like that. Like,
kind of like reverse. It's like a weird gaslighting thing on yourself. You're like, I'm not like, I don't know. Like, no, I literally just feel like I'm just going through this situation now. So I feel like I can relate a lot to this, but I feel like saying what you need to say and then how the other person receives it. Yeah. Like if they turn around and they're like, they try to flip it on you or like whatever, then I feel like you could say whatever you want. Like they're like kind of giving you that like opening to like, you know, I don't know. Like
give people the benefit of the doubt, and then if they cross a line, then it's like, all right, I gave you a chance.
Like I give you one chance. Like, and then usually second chances after that are.
Are you one to like when you get into an argument, you curse, like you get real nasty?
Not like, I mean, I feel like I kind of have like not the greatest mouth all the time as it is. So I don't think it's any different than that. I feel like I get quiet when I'm like really upset about things. Okay. So like if I don't know about you, but if I am in a situation where somebody's like really upsetting me, like if I shut down, like you've lost already in my eyes. Like I'm like, because like you can't fight like if I just don't say anything at all. And then like, it's just better. I don't know. And for me personally, sometimes I'm like, sometimes I need to take like a break. I need to walk away from it and like revisit this like at a different point.
That's healthy. And I don't know how to do that. Like, because I'm very like, not really in my real not my real life, not really in like my friendship life or family life. I feel like with family it's the opposite. I hold it, like I said before, I hold everything inside and then just randomly say it one day out of the blue. But in specifically with romantic relationships, I think because I feel so comfortable with my romantic partner, that's like the one person that I feel comfortable just going to the point where it's like it's completely the opposite. I say too much all the time, and I don't know, in my romantic relationships, I don't know how to put things aside and walk away. I'm like, if there's an issue, we got to deal with it right now, right here. And I think like it's something I need to work on. I think that's a healthy thing to be able to say, hey, I'm angry right now. Let's just talk tomorrow when I've cooled down a little bit.
It's not even like, like I think to be fair, I like the anxiety I have, I need to address it a little. But like on a scale of like, I just need you to know that there's something going on that like, I don't feel good about this. Yeah. And like, and then if you really can't, like you feel yourself escalating to that point, like where like I can't, then it's definitely like, okay, you should shut this down and like wait till everybody. And I'm not saying that it's going to be better the next day. I can't say that has always been.
Like you were like, I need to talk and calm down. You come back the next day, you fucking piece of shit. Like
it's like, oh, that can happen. And it has happened where like, I'm like, okay, I guess we just can't talk about this like in a nice way. But no, you're not alone on that.
I'm very like, when it comes to, like I said, in particularly romantic stuff, I don't know how to like put it in the box and save it on the shelf for later. I'm like, oh my God, there's a problem. I just need to talk about it right now, to the point where it's not respectful to my partner. Because, you know, they might be, oh my God, this is driving me crazy. I'll just, whatever. That'll just have to be in the video, I guess. It's to the point where it's not respectful to my partner, because they might be the person who needs space. And if I'm not willing to give them that space to cope with it, now I'm being an asshole, you know? So definitely something I have to work on.
But I think that it goes, different situations. But I feel like if they're with you and they know, they also can like kind of make you feel comfortable in your own space of what you need. Like if they know you need to like get it out, then that's like a good relationship too. So not that I know a whole lot. I mean, I'm not a long-term person.
Like, by the way, I just went through divorce and I've been single for 6 years, so I have the best. No, I'm just kidding. No, you probably have great advice, because if you went through a divorce, you know what not to do. Okay. All right. Are you okay? So I'm going to ask you a question. If you're not comfortable with this, I can just edit out the question completely, and it never happened. But one thing, you had reached out to me. You were thankful that I put out a video about an eating disorder. Are you comfortable talking about that, or should we just dodge this?
No, question? I can talk about that.
Okay. So I'm just kind of curious what it was like for you, how you experienced it. I want to see like if there's any similarities. Did you actually have some sort of body dysmorphic thing going on, where when you looked in the mirror, you saw yourself as bigger? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was in, and we were talking about like ages. It was very similar. Like it was like end of high school, into college, like early on. I was like dating someone then, and like no one ever knew, except for the fact that like I wouldn't eat like normal things, or like if I would eat, I would like push things around. And like my friends actually still to this day make fun of the fact they got me a book. It was like about toast. Because I would eat toast. Like sometimes I would order toast like when we were out like at restaurants and stuff. And because I could push it around, I could break it up. I could make it look like I was eating and like I wasn't. And like people notice. It's still to this day, I carry like a little bit of it with me. Like I'll like do like if sometimes I just feel that way inside. But like definitely have like it's like a control thing for it. Like I can control this. I can control what I'm putting in my mouth. I can decide if it's, you know, and there are moments that I think with stress or like like life events, like things like that, where like it can fluctuate, like how you feel.
Yeah.
And you have to like kind of get a hold of it. Like, okay, this still is around.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it was a long time of it too. Like where I just felt like I'm just dealing with this. Like this is just part of me now. It's kind of like where I'm at. But
that's very similar to my experience when I put out that video. One thing I talked about was how long it really took. That like one of the things I said in the video was that I felt like I finally got to a place of conclusion with it where I was like moving on from it, and that I had that it took about 10 years to get there. Because like you said, even though, you know, you can get yourself to a place where you're healthy enough, like you're eating enough to live, those tendencies to fall back into old habits can come back easily. And like you said, it like waxes and wanes depending on the stress in your life. But for me, I would just like be a normal person and living my life. And then all of a sudden, if something was going on in my life that felt out of control, I would just immediately go and be like, let me weigh myself. Oh my God, I need to lose 5 pounds. And it really doesn't take much to do that. Have you ever also had body dysmorphic issues in relation to like your face or anything? Because that's something I experienced, where I was having not only body issues but like face issues, where I literally saw my face as different than I think it actually was in photos.
I think that is like a real part of this too. Yeah. Like the whole thing is just kind of, you're saying this and it's like, oh yeah, I went through all of that, I think, like. And I can't say that it's gone. Like it's still definitely through my marriage I was like that. Like and now I don't even want to see a scale now. Like I'm like I don't as long as my clothes feel like they fit and like that kind of stuff, I'm usually pretty good. Like I'm like but if things, you know, if you start to feel like, oh, my pants are kind of tight or like this or that, like sometimes I feel myself doing the same stuff that I would do before where I'm like, oh, I'm not actually like sure if I'm completely better or not. Like I'm just kind of like
you're healthy, like you don't look too thin to
like
me.
that's the thing. Like I'm right now, I feel like I almost kind of took a turn, and like before I was so miserable and like food was just food. It was just like something that I was like whatever. Now it's like when I eat, it's purposeful. Like I enjoy it for what it is, and like I've made it a thing where like I don't know how to explain it, but like I'm doing things now that are like, okay, if I'm going to go have a dinner, it's going to be a good dinner. And like, I'm going to enjoy it. And it's going to be something that like, I'm not going to make myself feel guilty about it. And like, kind of like that kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know how much that would be helpful to anyone else because it's not like, I'm not.
I think what's helpful about it is that if anybody else is in a similar situation where they're like, oh my God, it's been 8 years, 10 years, what the hell? Like, just understand that can be a normal, not that it's a great thing, but it could be a normal part of the process. And you have to just continue to keep an eye on it and keep making sure you don't fall back. Did you ever have to be hospitalized for this or anything like that? Or was something you kind of had to just deal with on your own?
I did not have to go. I was the only thing that I had during that time that was pretty severe that I had to go to the hospital for was like these severe panic attacks where like I just like I would get so worked up over it and like people just had no idea what it was about. Like to them it was just like, oh, she's stressed out or something, but I was like, no, it's about food or like whatever. Like it would get that bad. And but I kind of got out of the whole thing. Like people did notice eventually that it was like a little bit too much, and then kind of get you involved with like doctors and seeing, you know, more of that side of things. But
one funny thing that I noticed during this time, which I was talking about with one of my podcast guests, was that men at the time would tell me I was too skinny. Men would be like, you need to gain 15 pounds. Women would flock to me and tell me, how did you do it? Which I thought it was crazy. I don't know. Did you have that experience?
No, it's like people, like when they see thin, they want to know like how they could be thin.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, and for women, it's like we all kind of like have that weird sense of like we have to be a certain way, or people aren't gonna like me, or I don't know, whatever. But like, yeah, I didn't like, guys don't notice that stuff, I feel like, as much. And if they do, like,
not only this, but this kind of blew my mind. Like, it's something I feel like I just learned this year. Men actually like fat on a woman. Like women are very like I said, the men were like, oh my God, like I have to be, you know, what did I just say? Oh no, the men were like, you have to gain 15 pounds. And the women were like, no, how did you do it? I learned this year that well, I guess it doesn't matter, because usually this really isn't about pleasing men. It's more about control, like you said. But if anybody's in a situation where they're doing it because they think that's how to be beautiful to the opposite sex, men act like it blew my mind this year when I realized that men actually like cellulite, they like a fat thighs, like they're into that. So it's like crazy. Women are just doing this for each other, but also, you know, like you said, the control issues and stuff like that. For me, it was very much about gaining control over my life, because, you know, like I had said in that video, I'm not sure if you experienced this as well. Did you get like an addictive rush when you would lose a pound? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was like, oh, I'm getting to goals, like, and it was like sick goals, like you're gonna be nothing here, and like it's just but to me it was more like I was happy about losing the weight. Like it made me feel like all this that I'm doing is like for a reason. Then I don't know, like it was
I know exactly what you mean. It's like you feel like I've done it, like it's just it's almost like a game like that you play, like it's like with yourself. It's like it's like a video game, and I got a point. It's like it's crazy, but it's actually a big part of it. Okay, this is a very weird transition to the next question, probably necessary just to like lighten up the subject. My question is, do you watch porn? And the reason I'm asking this is because I just recently put up a video clip saying I just stopped watching porn. And one of my male friends reached out to me, and he's like, porn? He's like, women have porn issues? Like, because I talked about how I stopped watching porn because I thought I had an issue with it. And he's like, I didn't know that women like watched it like that, like they would have like addictive porn issues. Like I think men have an image of women, like when they masturbate, they like have a glass of wine and a candle, and like they're like watching like some vampire movie. Like I think that's how they think we masturbate. And he was like so shocked to like hear that, like, I watch like hardcore porn. Like, you know, if you're comfortable answering that question, are you also a woman that uses porn, or not your thing?
So it's funny that you're like, I'm like, oh, I'm blown away. I'm like, did I
read your mind?
You did, I think, a little bit. But yeah, no, one of the things in my stand-up was my ex-husband was very like into porn.
Okay.
And he like hid it because we were part of a church and stuff. And I think that he was like, oh, like this is like, they said I can't like watch this, it's bad. And like I never cared. But when he took it to like a different level, I think it like, for some people, it's not just like to get off or like whatever. It's like they take it to a point where they think that that's like actually how things go. Like,
gotcha.
And he became like, I don't know, to me personally, he just seemed like kind of a robot. Like, and like it was like kind of like that was the driving force. Like he didn't know any better. And that's not his fault. Like I feel like, I don't know. There's just sometimes not enough awareness of like what is real and what's not when you get into that whole thing. Okay. But I mean, I have had partners that like will like watch stuff and like whatever. Like it was not a big deal to me. I am amazed at some of the things I've seen like on there. Like I was like, oh my God, like they turned it into a cereal bowl. And like I was like, holy, like I can joke about this stuff now. Like to me, that's like, you know, whatever. But at the time when everything was going on, like I probably would say like, I wasn't using that as much. And even to say like some of my friends were talking about just like the idea of like masturbation and stuff. They're like, it's not like maybe I'm weird. I don't know. But like, I feel like I'd rather be with like someone else than like, but maybe that's like just a weird thing that I have.
So you're not a big
I'm not a big, no.
Is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
So like, you have no issues with porn.
I do.
No. But you're just not into it.
Yeah, like I'll
Okay.
watch like stuff if that's like what we're doing.
But not a solo. You don't solo watch.
No.
Okay, so then maybe I am a weird woman. then,
No,
'cause
I don't
my
think
friend-
so.
my
I
friend
think that
was
maybe
like-
I always thought I was weird because
Yeah.
I was like, because people would be like, you don't need, like, no. And I'm, no. My friend actually bought me a vibrator one year for, it's in my drawer. I brought it out, like I've
brought it here today.
I have it in my purse. No. But I just like the idea of that stuff to me was like foreign.
Yeah.
So I'm like still, like, I'm new to all that. I'm getting it
Okay, that's
slowly,
interesting.
like,
No, but that's a good point you made though about like if someone's really into porn, they might take some of the content a little too literally, and it changes
Yeah.
the way they actually have sex.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. I hope that never happened to me because I'm like wondering if
I know,
I'm
you're
wondering
like,
if I
is
do
this-
that. Like I'm wondering if I like am a pornographic like sex partner like that. I hope not. I guess I'll ask.
Well, I feel like some of this stuff is just like it's not going to be harmful if like,
Yeah.
but I feel like for him it was more so like, I can't describe it. Other than that, it was
Yeah.
just, it just didn't feel like there was anything behind it.
It didn't feel like a genuine passionate connection to you.
Right.
It felt
Yeah.
more like
But I don't think that had to do with the porn as much as it had to do with like who he was as a person, which is like might be way worse for him. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, and that's like where maybe I am not as open to that kind of stuff because I have this idea in my head of it. And now I'm just thinking about that right now. Like, oh, that is interesting.
I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're, I personally have watched, I literally just did a whole video about it. It's on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I had watched porn for a long time, like since I was a big masturbator. Like I started masturbating very young. Like, so I, figured out how to use the internet when I was young and, got into porn and stuff like that. And because I had been using it for so long, I recently just stopped because I kind of realized, just like a long story short, I realized it wasn't good for me because I felt like, for one, I was relying on that for sexual fantasies rather than using my own creativity and my own imagination. So maybe I am like your ex-partner, that I was probably like numb or whatever. But also because I started having like issues with it, like just for society. I don't know. I'm getting older, so I'm just starting to think about more of that stuff. And I started thinking like, wait a second, like, are the women doing this even happy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they might be making money and they might be happy in the short term, but in the long term, is this really a good thing?
Right.
So I just started thinking about stuff like that. But no, that's interesting. So now I know some women don't even masturbate and then some women watch porn every day. I don't know. Interesting. So everybody's different.
Yeah.
I feel like there's probably very few men in the world that don't masturbate though.
No, I think that they all do. I don't know of any that like, no, I feel like I haven't talked to anyone that's been like, no, I'm off that for now.
No, there are men who like it's called no fap or something like that. They like go a month without masturbating to see if it will not excite, what's the word? It'll like cause a creative spark or something like that. Well, rather than the energy going out, through orgasm,
that.
it might like, come out through their
I mean, it might help some people. I feel like they should, maybe you guys should take that. Take some steps. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting to the hour mark. I think we literally like pretty much just hit the hour mark right now. So I only have one more question for you. And this is another crazy transition because we talked about eating disorders and then porn. And now I ask this to almost every one of my guests, so don't feel like I'm cornering you.
Okay.
But at this moment of your life, what is your current meaning of life? And I understand that this question is ever evolving. So what your answer tomorrow may not be the same as today, but right now in your life, like what is it to you? Is it about being a parent? Is like, how would you define it in your words? Or are you just kind of like atheist and you're like, it means nothing?
It's a tough one. I'm like, I kind of like split my life. It's like weird. Like I have like half of my life where I'm like trying to become like who I feel like I lost out on. And then like I have the other half where I'm like parenting this little girl
Gotcha.
who like, it's a weird thing. So I'm like in this constant battle where I haven't meshed it all together.
Gotcha.
So I think that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't know.
You're like exploring two different parts of yourself.
Yeah, it's been separate. So And for a while I was mad at it, and I'm like, I don't like this feeling. And like, I feel like eventually like it'll all come together, but it is two separate things. Like
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like two, like Batman and the Joker, like two different personalities in one person.
Yeah. It's weird.
Huh. So like mom nurse by day and like stand-up comedian by night. Yeah. That's pretty cool though. I think that's badass. I like it. I dig it.
I mean, she knows I do it. So she's like, she has no idea what it's about or like what goes on. But I feel like, so I just keep it separate.
Has your daughter ever asked like, oh, do you have a joke for me? Or like, does she just not care?
She was actually sending me jokes on the way down.
Really?
Yeah. She's like, you could use this.
What kind of jokes?
Oh my God. She was like, what's the alphabet's favorite drink? Tea.
I actually think you should use that. Like you actually
I was like, you might be really funny. Like,
no,
like no.
Louis C.K. does a bit where he talks about his daughter's joke and it kills. So I think you should talk about your daughter's joke on stage. It would probably get a lot of laughs. I don't know. I just laughed from it. All right. So we're going to end the podcast now. I had a great time. I'm so glad that I finally got a female on this podcast. It's been such a sausage fest because like we said, the comedy field is very male dominated and so is the music field. So I'm really happy about that. Before we leave today, let them know where they can find you. If you have any shows, unless you don't want them to see your shows, like then forget about it. But if you want them to find you on Instagram, or if you post something like a flyer about you performing anywhere, let them know where they can find you.
It's at OK Haymaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll probably just put a link to it below, so you guys could find her easily. And that's it. Pranzata Podcast, episode number 72. Again, don't forget to subscribe, like, all the good stuff, comment on anything we talked about. And that's it. Have a good day, guys. Bye.